somebody did a cartoon, water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. And it's so apt. And they're trying to do everything. 8 years in office, and they're still trying to blame the UPP. 8 years in office, and they're blaming a drought that started in 2011, where we had already put systems in place. Any water system is based on 3 basic components. It's 1, where you source your water, whether it be dams and ponds and reservoirs, whether it be from the sea, or whether it be from underground, or whether you extract it from the air. You have to get the water from somewhere. So that's your starting point. Then there is storage. And you must store the water somewhere. You have to have storage facilities. That is one of the main areas where there's been a breakdown. They still have not been able to give the people of Antigua and Barbuda an explanation. Why is the storage tank up at Patterson's just by Liberta, why is it still empty? Why hasn't it been connected? It was there when the UPP left office. We had plans for it to be connected. Why hasn't it been connected? Why isn't the one at Buckley is connected? Why has it taken so long for the one at St. Philip's and Collins to be put into service? The whole thing is a comedy of errors. And now you read in the cabinet notes that they brought in the water manager. Now they're trying to stress the poor man out, torment the poor man's soul. Because after 8 years of failure, they're now trying to throw him under the bus and make it seem as though it's his fault. So they're calling him up, and they're saying in the cabinet notes that they're saying to him, he must come back every week. So now after 8 years, you have totally failed the people. The tanks, the storage tanks are still empty, and you're now blaming him. And then the third component is, of course, distribution. How you manage your distribution. And that has to do with all your pipelines and maintenance of your pipelines and so on. And so you must have some sort of plan in terms of your groundwater, your surface water, your desalinated water, wherever you're getting the water from. You must have a clear plan where you're storing the water. The dams and reservoirs are no longer adequate for storage during this drought period. No rain is coming. You're having problems with your underground water, but we have desalinated water. And during the UPP's time, we had a plant that was producing over 4 million gallons a day. I blew the whistle on them. I called them out. I told them that a plant that was producing more than 4 million gallons a day was now producing 2 million gallons a day. They called in the water manager. They say I'm lying. They called in the water manager. The water manager says the truth. That's what's happening. He's telling them it's not my fault. Look at the system. What have you been doing? You have a whole minister. All he good for is smoke cigar. But what has he done to help the water situation? And then he said everything that Lovell say is true. And then you hear them getting busy. They found $1.4 million to buy membranes. We blew them out. They put it in the membranes before they put it in the filters. Badam, you hear they're getting filters. And all of a sudden now you're hearing about membranes and filters, and they're now stressing out the poor man and telling him he must come back to them every week after 8 years of failed leadership from the cabinet of Antigua and Barbuda, knowing that there's a drought. None of them were on top of the ball. None of them knew what was happening. They were so busy enriching themselves. Oh, they're cussing people when they should be doing the people's work. The water situation got away from them. They dropped the ball. They failed the people of Antigua and Barbuda. While people were suffering, they were having a great time. Having a great time and not paying attention. And now they're trying to blame everybody. They're blaming the workers at APUA, talk about sabotage. Now they're trying to stress out the water manager, making it seem as though it's his fault, when the fault lies with the leadership of this country. A major problem like drought. You had everything there to make sure that the people could get water. You failed the people of Antigua and Barbuda. Time for the Labour Party government to go. Bunch of jokers. UPP is the right choice.
How do you respond to the criticism they make that the UPP is seeking to politicize the water situation?
They should be ashamed to say that. To say something like that, each one of them should look in the mirror and say, I'm sorry. Sorry for being a fool to myself. Because they made a fool of themselves. How are you going to say you're politicizing a problem like water? Who was it who went on the platform and said, any government that cannot provide water for its people does not deserve to be elected by the people? Who was it? Wasn't it the same Labour Party minister who's now responsible for water who said it? Who was it who all the time made it seem as though the UPP was the problem when we were putting matters in place so that we would have continuous water? Never during the period of the UPP did we have the sort of problems that we have right now in Antigua. Never, ever, ever. In fact, I don't remember any time since 1968 that we've ever had this. And in 1968, we did not have a desalination plant. It was following that big drought around in the mid-60s, and then the big shower of rain came and broke the 7 years of famine. And then Potworks Dam was filled up even before it was completed. That was, I think, 1967 or 68. And that is what broke the drought. But before that, you had a major drought, but we didn't have desalinated water. And so everybody was going through a real hard time. We've gone backwards. We haven't gone forwards. And while they're telling people the water situation is getting better, it is getting worse.